Welcome to another exciting episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod.
I'm Bryce.
You're Bryce? Okay, not like,
That's
hey.
my name. Hey, I'm Bryce.
Okay. Wow, man, did you grow up? Did you get up on the wrong side of the bed? Did you forget to take your nap?
We're filming a night episode. I've already
Filming? Really? I don't see a camera around here. Good.
We're
Lord.
recording a night episode, and it's already past my bedtime. I turned into a pumpkin like 30 minutes ago.
You do have a nice shade of orange, I gotta say.
You're making me blush.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Yes, I am. I am Bryce Runge.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So what do we want to talk about today?
So, I was really moved recently. I went to
With a dolly?
No, I'm confused.
Well, I didn't know if they picked you up on a two-wheel handcart and moved you.
I wasn't physically moved. I was like, I guess we'll call it spiritually moved or something,
sorry.
right? Okay. I went to a men's conference not long ago, and man, I was blown away.
Okay.
They had some really just awesome speakers that came in, and they were talking about choices. And that's kind of where I wanted to go tonight with this episode.
Okay.
With choices and how our choices don't just impact us, they impact several people. And one of the speakers at this event happened to be Joseph Gagliano.
Okay.
And in 1993, 1994, somewhere around there, when he was 24 years old, he had organized and financed the multi-million-dollar Arizona State basketball point shaving scandal.
Whoa.
It was...
At 24?
At 24 years old. It gave me chills, just listening to their story. And the basketball player that he had been involved with was Stephen Smith.
That name vaguely rings a bell.
Yeah, so he was an ASU standout.
Okay.
On his way to the NBA. I guess, long story short, he got himself into some financial trouble on campus.
Okay.
And someone that he had been in trouble with knew this Joseph Gagliano guy. And, hey, I've got a way for you to make millions of dollars. So that's where this point shaving thing came in.
Okay.
So, long story short, he's up on stage and he at one point says like that from Chicago to Las Vegas, he boarded the plane with a suitcase or a duffel bag with $5 million in it.
Holy crud.
And I'm like, what?
How do you get on the airplane?
Well, and that's what the guy that was, kind of leading this conversation. He's like, there's no way. How can you get? He's like, oh, I did. I had $5 million of cash in my duffel bag.
Wow.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
I wonder what $5 million in a duffel bag looks like.
I don't know. That's a ton of money. But anyway, so he goes on to, tell more about the story. And it was super impactful. And they think that they get away with this. Okay. They make millions of dollars. They think they get away with this until like 3 years after this whole scandal goes down. Before when it goes down.
So Stephen
Smith.
He's in the NBA.
He's I guess he plays overseas, and then he's said that he's. I can't quite remember. Don't quote me on this, but he's with the Mavericks.
Okay.
He's training with them. He's playing with them.
Oh wow!
And so this is 3 years after the whole the point shaving deal. 3 years after the feds knock on their doors.
Whoa, that's intense.
And they end up serving, however many. I don't know how long it was, but they go to prison.
That reminds me of the movie The Longest Yard,
Yes.
where they're shaving points, and
Oh yeah.
they were saying about man, you can what did they say? Well, like you can commit murder. You can rob a bank, you can kill a bus full of nuns, but shaving points on a sports event.
Oh yeah, it was like, I'm thinking, wow, this is crazy. I never really heard about it. I was a junior in high school, but to this day, it's one of the largest, collegiate
Yeah.
whatever, scandals. But I'm sitting there listening to their story, and they're talking about something that they did. And one thing that they were standing on, it was what they were trying to impress upon, everyone there, was this: no matter what, you stand by your values. No matter what, you do the right thing, even when the right thing, is very challenging. Or, we're talking about he grew up in a Christian family, had good morals and whatnot, and this it came upon him, and he's like, wow, okay, I'm gonna do this.
That sounds like I've seen a number of stories, TV, movies. They talk a lot about this, about the lure of fast cash.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've never had that as a problem, but it makes me wonder, what would I do?
Right.
If somebody came up to me and said, hey, will you fix grades for money?
Mm.
And I jokingly say, well, it's going to have to be a whole lot of money.
Right.
And it has to be cash because I'm going to get fired. I'll lose my license.
Right.
So I got to be able to have afford a life after. But, I don't know that that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. And as I'm sitting there listening to their story as they unpack it, and the other thing too, it was interesting, is that it wasn't till recently, I'm thinking like in the last few months, is that, the first time that these two guys, so Joe Gagliano and Stephen Smith, have met. Prior to that, they never met.
Really?
Yeah.
So even when he had all that money to Vegas?
Correct. So I guess he had sent him, so Joe sent Stephen some money, and as he was telling the story, he's like, he got them, he sent him cash, and Stephen was like, yeah, I got your money. And Joe's like, you got the 50 grand. He's like, I didn't get 50 grand. I only got 20. So there was someone in the middle that jacked 30K, right?
Oh, my.
And so, but all these years later, they had never met until like really recently. And so they've been sharing the stage, and now they're taking their story, and I guess obviously they're going public with it. Joe Gagliano writes a book. I think it's called No Gray Lines or something like that. He writes it. He writes it in prison because he thinks he's going to die in prison. He thinks he's going to die in prison, so he wants to write this book. It was just wild. And he gets out of prison. He thinks everything's good. He's successful in Arizona with businesses and whatnot. He gets arrested again.
What do you do?
I'm not 100% sure. I can't recall what he said. It had to do. He said that he's done nothing wrong. To this day, he's going to go to his grave. He didn't do anything wrong.
Okay.
So I don't know if I don't know. You'd have to Google it. Okay. So, anyways, he does. He's about to do 30 months in prison.
Holy smoke!
Yeah, and then he, I guess story goes, I hate telling his story, but that's just kind of, it is what it is. But he thinks about killing himself.
Really?
And then he ends up meeting. I think he goes to a church, and a church that he not affiliated with, and he goes in. No one's in the entry, the lobby area, or whatever. And it looks like there's someone who's cleaning up some tables, and that guy cleaning up the tables turns and he says, "Joe Gagliano." It's a longtime friend he hasn't seen in years.
Oh my!
And that changed everything. So he went to basically say, "Hey, I'm going to ask God to forgive me for what I'm about to do," and he was going to kill himself. He's got a family, he's got a wife, and he's like, "I'm good for nothing," And so I'm not 100% sure exactly what that whole situation was, but he said he didn't do what it is he was charged for. So I don't know. Again,
You know,
Google it. Read his book. I don't know.
okay. Well, I'll have to look into that. It is, we get a lot of kids in the classroom who feel that, okay, they've made a big mistake. They've done something that they think that there's no walking away from or walking back from or overcoming. And, I'm glad that, this guy, Gagliano, was able to be talked out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I get the idea of suicide. I'm not a fan of it. I don't support it. I get where somebody would feel that low.
Right.
But, to me, that is a permanent solution for a temporary problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad that he was talked out of that because, the impact that would have had on other people.
Right.
You're right. I mean, I'm glad you said it. You want to talk about it just because the things that we do have far-reaching impact in ways that we do not realize.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
I kind of, okay, I like the way you're saying that because we always have choices.
Yeah.
And, I guess my point in sharing or saying that is there's things that we can do, things that we can always, we're given free will.
Yeah.
And we may not like the choices available to us, but when you said take ownership, sometimes we got to live with ourselves and our decisions.
Yeah.
And when you take ownership and you say, yeah, you know what, I did that I made a bad choice or whatever, usually it's, we celebrate our successes, but we really fear and dread our failures, of which I've got quite a few. But, that reminds, as you say that, I was reading an article here, I don't know, a month or two ago, and it was about the idea of free will. In fact, the name of the article was, Are You a Free Human Being? And they were talking about free will.
Okay.
Do we really have free will?
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do we have free will?
Yeah, absolutely. I do.
So we're not pigeonholed into, well, I have to do this or I have to do that. Because, I hear kids saying, well, I have to. And I'm reminded of stuff that my dad would say, no, actually you don't. The only thing you got to have to do is die and pay taxes.
Yeah.
And paying taxes is optional.
Right.
You always have choices.
Yeah. I someone that we worked with closely that we love dearly. I always say life's about choices. I agree. And, people will say like, I'm going to say this only because I've had this conversation with my father-in-law because he has cancer and he's, I didn't ask for cancer. It wasn't my choice to get cancer, but I tell you what, I'm going to stand before you. I'm going to decide how I'm going to respond to it.
Mm-hmm. And in that case, again, people are going to be affected by the decisions that you make.
Right.
No matter what you do. Our choices, I don't know, that's, it's interesting. I think with age comes the ability to look at things that we've done, the choices that we've made. Mm-hmm. There are times where I've made choices at the time that I'm going, oh, well, this is kind of what I have to do. I have to do this. Mm-hmm. And and listening to you, and I'm thinking, did I really have to? I remember my parents telling me, you have to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what you major in, but you are going to college. I never questioned it.
Yeah.
I didn't know what, go to college. Okay. Well, that's just like what? High school next step?
Mm-hmm.
And I had no idea about taking the SAT or the ACT. I had no idea about applying for scholarships. I had no idea that I had to actually apply to go to college. Because our counseling staff was not real efficient
Yeah.
in those kinds of things. They would help you, but you had to go ask for it.
Yeah.
I didn't know I had to do these things. And so the idea of going to college, well, what are you going to major in? I don't know. Because girls and parties were not on the list of options.
I don't see a class for that.
Well, women's studies, that turned out to not be what I thought it was. Neither was my course in logic. But
Oh my gosh.
yeah, both of those were epic fails. But it's, but again, you have choices.
Yeah.
Do you get up in the morning or do you not? Do you go to work or not? Do you do all these things?
Right.
Everything's about a choice.
Yeah.
And you always have a choice. Even if the choices aren't ones you like, you always have choices.
Yeah.
And I think people are always there to be beside you.
Yeah.
The number of times I have kids tell me, well, my parents will kill me. If they learn this, they're going to kill me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've talked about this before. No, mom and dad are not going to kill you.
Yeah.
They love you. They loved me. My parents loved me, even though I did really mind-boggling, stupid things. And
Not a surprise.
Should be. But it's, I guess after Eric's mother killed Eric and then took her own life, I was beside myself in total grief. And I kept asking, well, how can you do this? How can you do this? How is it possible that somebody would feel that was their only recourse? And I remember my mom telling me, it's free will. We always have choices, and you get you can make that choice.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea of free will, God gave us free will to make choices.
Mm-hmm.
And our choices, I like what you said. They do impact so many other people in what we do or don't do.
Right. Well, and sitting here tonight, I opened up I opened up to chapter, I guess let's call it day 15, page 73 of my book, Wake Up, Wake Up, Wake Up. If you haven't purchased it yet, go to Amazon, look up Wake Up, Wake Up by Bryce Runge, check it out. But this is...
What a selfless promotion.
Hey, you know what? You got to do what you got to do, man. Hey, you know what? This book could help people. I go back and I read it all the time because it helps me. But this is exactly what we're talking about. The title is "It's Always on Your Side," on our side.
Okay,
it's about choices.
Really?
And I relate to a door handle. Like that door handle is always on our side.
Okay.
No one else can turn the knob. I have access to it. Like I have access to making the right choice. Does that make sense?
It does.
But what I'm saying in this, I'm just going to actually, do you mind if I read this?
You can read?
Yeah, I mean, a little slow, but, and I want you to challenge me. Tell me if you see, you probably haven't even read my book. I know you haven't, but anyways.
That is so not true.
The choices we've made throughout our lives have ultimately determined where we are and who we have become. The way we choose to live creates a ripple effect not only in our lives, but also in the lives of others, which is either negative or positive. Our daily decisions open the door to what we truly want in life. This powerful truth invites us to take responsibility for our choices, even those smallest decisions often neglected that can lead to big things. I'll pause right there.
I totally agree. I think of our students and how they will come back. I don't know if they come visit you while they're still in school, but mine always graduate. And then they'll show up a year, 2, 3 years later, walk by the classroom. Hey, McCall. Mm-hmm. They don't stop by every teacher.
Right.
But they stop by and they'll say hi to me. And it makes me feel like 10 feet tall because I'm going, man, that kid, they ran my butt ragged. Mm-hmm. You know, they were always late. I had to hound them, you know, to get your work turned in. Let's get you graduated.
Right.
But something happened that made an impact with them. I did not realize at the time. I would imagine you've got lots of stories as well of kids who come to you later saying, you said this, you did that, and it made a huge impact. And, you know, I really do, I guess that's one of the reasons why I do so enjoy teaching, is because you don't know what you say or do might be exactly what somebody hears.
Right.
That being said, words are very powerful. Mm-hmm. And when you mentioned about the negative effect, there's things that you can say or do that absolutely can have the wrong impact than maybe what you intended, or maybe you intended, which would be even worse.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, with Eric's mom, there would be times we get into fights and I would deliberately say things because I was so angry that I would say, I don't know that I really meant it, but I would say it because I knew it would make her angry.
Right. Yeah.
That dig. And I mean, we always have a choice. So I like the way you say that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. There's more?
I just want to read this piece right here. I'm not going to read the whole chapter, if you will. But a recent study showed that our emotions are not beyond our control. They do not just happen to us. We are responsible for them. Again, responsible for them. Our inability to control emotions relates to our limits of managing our beliefs and thoughts. We are accountable for our choices, and we must accept the consequences of the choices, whether positive or negative, right?
Mm-hmm, sure.
And so the effects of today are yesterday's choices, and what we choose today will dictate our tomorrows. The bottom line is this: that door handle I was talking about, it's always on our side. It's that free will.
You know, in my class that I'm taking right now, one of the big questions that keeps being brought up throughout various chapters is the idea of nature versus nurture. Are our behaviors, are they predetermined by biological means? Or are they being influenced by the environment in which we live? And it's really kind of interesting because if you argue that it's biological, that it's mostly biological, then are you arguing that you have no choice in the actions that you take? That, well, okay, your parents were alcoholics, so that's why you're an alcoholic. Well, I don't know. I mean, don't you have some deciding factors on that? I mean, I don't know. Let's just leave it at that question.
Well, Well, I'm glad you said that. You going back to product of your environment, right? I think at the end of the day, you have a choice. If your parents are alcoholics, does that mean you have to become an alcoholic?
You might be predetermined to have a more of an addiction to that.
Yeah.
But I think at some point you do have that conscious choice of, do I want to be like that or not?
Mm-hmm. So one of the guys during that weekend, he was from California. His name is Ray Rompery. I might be getting that wrong. Awesome guy. Hispanic fellow from the Bay Area. And he came into the conference, this is funny, wearing a 49ers jacket.
Really?
And they're diehard up there, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And Ray, tattoos galore, long ponytail, and I'm thinking, man, Ray. I hung out with a lot of Rays growing up. One of my close friends, Jesse. He passed away not long ago. But he's like Ray, except for he's a Rams fan. But so I do hope the Rams win for my good friend Jesse, who had passed away. But Ray rolls in and he made a joke about walking in at the conference and, saying, I got more stares from the people, at this conference.
Evil stares?
Yeah, like bad stares than I have on all the prison yards that I've walked.
Oh, jeez.
And one of the guys like, well, man, you're wearing a 49ers jacket. Yeah, but I'm diehard SA, so I'm and so he goes on also, powerful story. Mom and dad get arrested when he's 6 years old for drugs.
Oh, wow.
Well, long story short, Ray ends up living this life. He says, man, he does time in, he calls it Skeleton Bay, Pelican Bay.
Okay.
And what's the other one out there? The island out in San Francisco.
The prison that doesn't exist anymore?
No, what's the other one? I can't remember. Anyways.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on prisons.
Oh, well, a couple hard prisons that he went to. Anyways. But he talks about, he was devastated. Mom and dad get arrested. He's got no father figure. What's he going to do? So I'm going to join a gang, right? Because we're like a brotherhood and
Fill the family void.
Yeah. And so, but anyways, he'll tell you now that, no, I knew like I shouldn't be, I don't want to follow their footsteps. I don't want to do that. But I don't know. It goes on to tell like, yeah, I went that route anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't have to go to prison, but I did. I made that choice. I made the choice to do drugs. I
think you felt trapped?
I don't know. Obviously, I didn't have a conversation with him.
Sure.
I heard his story, but an individual like that, like, man, I had a choice. I didn't choose wisely.
Okay. Because, we all did. Okay, I shouldn't say all. I know I have made some good choices in life, but I've also made some really bad choices.
Mm-hmm.
But I made that choice. I knowingly, willfully, when I may not be following the speed limit,
mm-hmm.
I know that when I'm going over the speed limit, it is a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
And I know that if I get a ticket, it's going to really stink. I'm going to be very angry. And I'm going to probably be pissed at the cop for pulling me over. But at the end of the day, I'm transferring that anger onto the cop because it's me. I made that choice.
Right.
I mean, I didn't have to. I made the choice.
Right. And I mean, that's that ownership piece.
Well, one of that article I read that I was talking to you about earlier, one of the things it mentioned or talked about was the idea that, you're not a puppet on a string.
Yeah.
That you do have control.
Yeah.
And even if you're backed into a corner, you still have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
It may be choices that you don't like.
Yeah.
But you have a choice. And I like the TV show Blue Bloods. I don't know if you ever watched that or not.
No, I don't.
It's a CBS show, and it's a cop show.
Oh, okay.
And I really like it because it's in New York City, and it deals with a lot of people, and they're put in really uncomfortable situations. Well, you need to testify. Well, but if I testify, well, I live in a gang neighborhood. Well, or maybe I was watching one earlier today where a lady had gotten raped, and the rapist was a very well-connected, wealthy guy. And she's going, I don't want to have to relive all that in trial. So she didn't want to participate in pressing charges, or at least being a witness to testify, and made those choices.
Right.
Going, well, I can't. Well, if I do I can't, because if I do, these horrible things will happen. Okay, but you're making a choice.
Right.
I guess I go back to what I said earlier. With age comes, I don't know if we want to call it wisdom or the ability to reflect. Because one of the things I was reading in my text was the concept of age. How much time is a year? When you are 10 years old, that's 1/10 of your life. Okay, when you're 20, well, now that's 1/5 of your life. 1 year is 1/5 of your life. When you're 50 years old, well, that's 1/50th of your life. So time has a different meaning.
Yeah.
And so I like the idea, it's interesting that these gentlemen that were at this men's conference, they recognized what they did and are now going around saying, look, you have choices. And okay, so you make a choice. It is kind of, horrible. You wind up in jail, or, well, I guess all these guys did wind up in jail.
Yeah.
I think that would be some of the worst consequences of a bad choice made.
Yeah.
But they've come out the other side going, I now have another choice.
Right.
Do I learn from what I did through taking ownership and go, I don't want to do this again? How can I not? How can I learn from this and make a different set of choices?
Yeah.
That might get me a different result that might make me less inclined to go back to jail.
Yeah. Yeah. You had mentioned, older, wiser. I couldn't help but just think about, it's over there on the wall, that article. February, I think that was February 4th.
Nobody can see the article.
I'm talking to you.
Oh, okay, sorry. So
I'm going to explain the article. So February, there's an article. I was on the cover of the Orange County Register in Orange County, California.
Cool.
And it was February 4th, I believe that was, National College Signing Day. So right around this time when a lot of athletes are signing. Sure. And so it's over there on my wall, and the title is Older, Wiser. That was not true. That was not true, but I couldn't, sit and listen to those guys. The conversation we're having tonight, the journey that I have been on, absolutely 1,000%. Yeah, life's about choices. We have that ability to choose.
You say that, and Sherry and I were out chit-chatting. We'd gone to lunch, and I see these things up on Facebook where if you could go back to your 18 or 20-year-old self and you could say 3 words or 5 words, something like that, what would you say? And
pull your head out of... Oh.
That's too many words, sorry.
Went over the limit.
But I got thinking, and I told her, I said, if I were to go back to my 18 to 20-year-old self and say whatever few words you could, I wouldn't be who I am today because and I told her, I said, I really am in a happy place. I like who I am. I like the direction that my life is going. And I don't know that I would be able to be where I am now if I hadn't gone through all those things that I did. Early, in my late adolescent years, early adulthood, getting married to Eric's mother. All those things, even the divorce and his death, or Eric's death, that is, it made me who I am. And so even though I would love to say, I wish these things had happened, if they hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am today. Right. And I mean, again, it's our shared experiences that we pull from to talk about things of various natures. And so our free will allows us to make the choices that, even if they may turn out to be bad choices, you had to make them. Because I don't think when we made those decisions, we thought them bad at the time. Mm-hmm. I mean, when Joe Gagliano thought he was making millions of dollars on that point shaving, he was going, yeah, but look at all the money I'm making.
Right.
Well, it can't be that bad. I mean, really, who's getting hurt? It's not a victimless crime.
Right.
Or it is a victimless crime.
Yeah. No, it just... No, I'm glad you said that, and it really made me think. And listening to those guys, I just couldn't. Again, going back to even back before, when I went back playing football, I started just reflecting basically, and I mean, it took me way back, and it just resonated with me because obviously a lot of my story, a lot of it's in my book. But again, man, what if I chose different that one time? Right. Or whatever. Right. But again, the choices that we make, what I've learned is, again, with Joe Gagliano, his choice didn't just impact him. It impacted his wife. It impacted his kids. Mm-hmm. And I think we forget a lot. Like our kid, the kids that you and I get to teach every day. Oftentimes they don't recognize that. More often than not, they don't recognize it. Right? Their choices that they make don't just impact them; they impact a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's kind of what I try and teach on as well. Our thought life, the decision making skills. Right. And understanding that the choices that we make, again, I can't redundant here, but I think it's important. The choices we make don't just impact us, and they do decide our tomorrows.
Sure. And whatever choices we make, we are 100% in control of what decisions we make.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that story. That sounds like an interesting conference. Where was that held at?
That was at the church.
Okay.
Yeah, Rock Creek Church, where we go.
Okay. Different friends of mine have gone to different men's groups or men's weekends, and they always say that they get a lot out of them.
Yeah.
And, I think the one thing that we may not do enough of is self-reflection.
Yeah.
To be able to step back from the day-to-day grind and, I don't know, I guess on Saturday Night Live they used to do Deeper Thoughts by Jack Handy. And being able to do just that. Have something that makes you go,
Right.
So that's really good.
Yeah.
Thanks for because I didn't know what we were going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you talk about reflection. I think this is a if nothing else, get this. Reflection leads to insight,
Okay.
which ultimately leads to impact. So reflection plus insight equals impact.
That's really good.
If you're not reflecting, what are you getting, right? That's why I think we've talked about this in the past. Or reflecting is I think a crucial part, especially if you're wanting to get better, you're wanting to grow, and you're wanting to get better. You've got to spend time in reflection, and that reflection is going to provide the insight you need to grow and get better, and then ultimately, that leads to a greater impact.
I like that. Yeah. It does. As you say that, it's kind of like, a light bulb going off over my head, or to pull a phrase from you, I'm nodding over here like a bobblehead. But yes, absolutely. It's, again, I think it comes with age, the idea of being able to look at things that we've done.
Right.
So, but, even when you're in your early 20s, mid 20s, 30s, there's still, opportunities to just take a short break and take a look at what you're doing. And are you happy with where you're at? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. If you're not happy, why not?
Yeah.
What would make you happy? What minor change or twist can you make? Because at the end of the day, we're in control.
Yeah.
We get to make these decisions. It's not preordained.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you on that one, man. I really am.
Perfect. Well,
for once we agree. No.
Yay! As long as you always say I'm right, we're good.
I'm not going to say
Okay.
it. I'm not going to say that.
Oh, well, that's all right. I'll keep working on you. Well, shall we call it a night?
Let's call it a night, man.
All right. Well, we need to get your pumpkin head off to bed. So.
Yeah. Past my bedtime.
Yes. All right. Well, I guess until next time, brother.
All right. Sounds good.
I'm Rod.
I'm Bryce.
See ya.